Greetings, folks. I am MLH, and today we are talking about Wolcen, Lords of Mayhem, and specifically the attribute system. This is for Alpha Patch 0.5.0.5c. Keep this in mind as things may change as the game goes into future builds. So let's get right into it. There are 4 basic pools that you can spend your attribute points into. They are ferocity, toughness, agility, and willpower. We're going to go over each of these in this video and explain how they affect your character's gameplay. So here we have my level 20 big boy. And he is just that, isn't he? He is a big boy. And he has also got a big wedgie. So there you go. I love that you can just make your characters any shape in this game. It's pretty good. All characters start out with 0 attributes, well, 1 each of these of the 4 categories. At level 20, you get a total of 200, which means you get 10 per level. Okay? So, everything starts out at weak. Depending on how you want to create your character, what type of character, whether you're going to be a tank, or you're going to be a caster, or you're going to be a ranged DPS, or a melee DPS, you're going to choose to spend your points in different places. So we're going to go over each of them. So ferocity, this affects your melee damage, critical damage, defensive ability, and attack speed. Okay? By default, all of these numbers are in the negative, with the exception of defensive ability. It's at a total of 50%, which technically is negative, right? If you had 100%, you'd be that would be perfect. So what do what does ferocity actually affect? So damage modifier and melee. This is all melee attacks. In this case, because you have so little, you actually are doing 18% less damage in melee with having no points at level 20. Same thing with critical damage modifier. So this is how much damage you do when you critical hit. Attack speed. You have the more ferocity you have, the faster you will attack. And your defensive ability. Right? This represents damage reduction applied on incoming physical attacks, which affect part of your health that is within your defensive range. That tooltip's a little wordy, but you get the general idea. Okay? Toughness. Toughness affects your health, your defensive regeneration, your stamina regeneration, and your damage resistance. Okay, so the more toughness you have, increases your health. And we can see I'm starting with 728, and I add 1 point and I get 2 health. And that continues on. Okay, so you can see how that works. Defensive regeneration. Okay, the amount of defensive points that you restore per second when your defense is shattered by an external source. It's expressed in a percentage of total defense per second. It also increases the duration of temporary defensive boosts. This is a weird one, and it's going to take some getting into some of the further stats to really kind of explain. Some of the choosing of their words is a little bit odd so far, but once you see the whole picture, it makes sense, and hopefully I can represent that for you. Stamina regeneration. The total delay for restoring 1 stamina point that has been spent. A low value means you recover your stamina points quickly. Okay, so stamina is what you use to dodge roll, and you by default get 4 points to begin with, and you can earn additional points. Damage resistance. A global modifier to your resistances against main damage types. Very basic. Okay. Agility affects your damage modifier for ranged attacks. Critical chance modifier, so this is how often you will critical chance. How often you actually effectively dodge. And what your movement speed is. Okay, so damage modifier for ranged is just that. How much damage you do with ranged attacks. What you'll notice is that the default state is the same as ferocity is for melee. So there is no penalty. Everything starts at equal, and then how you spend your points is what's going to make the change. Crit chance modifier, how often you're going to critical. Movement speed, self-explanatory, and dodge chance is also self-explanatory. Okay, dodging an attack does completely ignore any effects, regardless of their type, and the damage incoming. So having high dodge, depending on your class style, could be good. Willpower. So this is going to be your caster things. Damage modifier for spells. Again, it starts at that negative 18.4. And keep in mind, guys, this is for level 20. Okay, those numbers change as you are lower levels. And I suspect they would change greater as they raise the level cap. Health regeneration. And this is how much health you regenerate each second. Ailment chance modifier. So this is your chance to inflict a status ailment. Okay. Again, that also is at that 18.4% negative. And your resistance to spells. Okay, pretty self-explanatory. These are your base stats as well. Your Umbra regeneration is represented as a 100. Okay, so your natural rage loss over time representing your Umbra regeneration. Rage conservation, how long you will keep rage before you start to regenerate Umbra again. Your rage generation each time you hit an enemy, and the amount of rage points generated each time you are hit by an enemy. Block chance, block efficiency, block angle, and your presence. Okay, so those are the basic high-level stats. The game is very deep in the stats, so for those of you that like to min-max, this is going to be a game that you're going to really, really like. They kind of take what Diablo 3 does with this side panel and go way overboard with it, if you ask me. Well, overboard's not a fair statement. They really get into the details. So they have a whole section for combat, everything to do with your casting speeds and your melee speeds and your range and your critical chances, your thorns, all that sort of stuff you might expect. They have a section for survivability, health, regeneration, defense, and that defense shattered it's a really weird thing. We'll get there eventually. Okay, damage types. This is the types of damage that you do, not types of damage you take. Damage that you do. So, how much physical damage you're doing. Okay, how much? What's any modifiers is going to be? Piercing. So piercing attacks allow you to inflict partial damage to the enemy's health, even if its protections should normally prevent it. A piercing percent. Okay, so this is the percent of that damage that will pierce. Shattering. The amount of extra damage inflicted to your enemy's protection of a specific type. This amount of points will be inflicted to the protections bar of an enemy regardless of the base damage. We'll get into that in a later video as we talk about the bars that you'll see on different enemies. And the shattering percent. Then we get resistance types. These are all the different resistances that can be in the game, which also means these are all the different ailments that you can inflict in the game. There's a lot of options here, guys. Okay. Status ailments. Right, so this is your individual resistance to something, and then this is your chance to do that type of damage to something. Stun, burn, freeze, shock, etc. Lots and lots of stuff in here, depending on your type. You can stack up to 10 different ailments onto something. Currently, there are things that will modify that. Resource pools, pretty self-explanatory. Dash, certain classes or melee classes will allow you to dash in and hit an enemy from a certain distance. So your dash damage, your range, the cooldown of said dash, and critical chance and critical damage. As you can see, dashing has a pretty high critical chance at its base and critical damage. It's well worth doing if you're a melee player. Potions. So you get up to 5 potions. We'll go over those at a later time. And this is the cooldown before they regenerate. And this is the amount of time. This is the cooldown between you can use them, and this is the amount of time needed to regenerate them. And then overkill, which is a whole stat all by itself. Overkills will give you a temporary attack speed boost, and their chance increase the higher the damage which induced the death was. So, your default chance to perform an overkill when killing an enemy with a specific damage type. Overkills will give you a temporary attack speed boost, and their chance increases the higher the damage which induced the death was. So let's say you had you only need to kill something that had 2 hit points, but you hit it for 100. Your attack speed, the chance of getting the attack speed boost would be 98% based on how much it was over. And so you have all these different stats. And you have experience, your globe pickup radius, your gold picking up radius, which auto picks up, very nice, gold find, and then magic find. Interesting, magic find. It's the only place that this gets talked about so far. Alright. And magic find increases the probability of looting magic items. So, that's your basic stats. And then we're going to quickly, I know this is a long video, but there's a lot here. We're going to kind of spend some points and give you some basic pointers in the beginning. If you are a caster class, you're going to want to put the majority of your points into willpower, right? Because this makes sense. So what we're going to do is, we have 200 points. I'm going to split them into percentages, and we're going to say that 80 points we're going to put into here, 60 points to here, 40 here, and 20 in ferocity. And I'm going to do that because I want to illustrate something. If you hold down Shift and left click, you will assign 5 points at a time. Makes life a whole heck of a lot easier. You'll notice that my description went from weak to average by adding 80 points. Let's put 60 into agility. This also made this average, okay? And we did this because I wanted the movement speed, the dodge chance, and some plus to my critical chance modifier. Toughness, we're going to go ahead and, you're a caster, so you want some toughness. We're going to put in the 40 points here. It's still registering as weak, okay? And maybe I did my maths wrong. Maybe I did. I think I did. And we'll go 20 points here. Actually, each of these would be like that if I was keeping consistency. But I want you to notice something. As you add points to something, other things change. Okay, so as this is an average, if I were to put, let's see, I wonder if it'll be enough here. No, let's take these out. That's still not enough. I want to get one to good. So let's do this as far as it can be. So if I go 43 points makes that average. And this goes to good. Let's see, when does this go to good? Average is there. And you see average, what that does is it basically gets you to a 0%, so you're not taking a penalty. And then good is where you start to see some basic increases. So there's a lot of penalties for just not having points. But the plus side is that you can get a lot of points from your gear as well. Okay, so for example, we're going to take all these points out. And we're going to put on almost a complete caster set. I don't have a complete caster set right now in my inventory. It's almost completely caster. I leveled this guy as melee, and I just moved him over to caster. So we're going to throw this stuff on, and as we do, you can start to see how those attribute points go up pretty quickly. So I still have 0. I've put 0 in, but I'm already at averages. Right, so now if we add 80 points, so this would be 166, 144. That would be, now I'm in good, right? And I've got all this plus. A minute ago, when good, with no gear, this was 0%. So you can see how it kind of affects. And all of these things get affected here as well, as you add things. Okay? So if we go 60 here, we'll bring this to 77. Excuse me. We'll add the 40 here. Actually, that's 69, so we'll go to 109. 110's close enough. We'll add 20 here. And we'll just add the rest of them. Right, so we can get toughness between gear and willpower up into the good ranges. And then ferocity and agility are average. So that kind of gives you some basic things of what to look at, and you can see how all these things have changed, and so forth and so on. So that's what you got for so far, guys. I hope this helped clear up the attribute points. I know it's a lot. It's one of the longer videos I've done so far, but it's really kind of complicated to run through all of this. So thanks for sticking it out. If you like what you see, please feel free to hit the subscribe button, share, thumbs up, and my Twitch link is down below if you want to come on to stream and chat about this. I stream Wolcen 3 to 4 days a week, and I will be through the launch of the game. We'll talk to you soon.